We have a disagreement. Me being loud is not a part of the makeup. To whereas in the States, a woman is out talking me, I'm out talking her, and we're going back and forth bantering. Well, here in Colombia, I'm not seeing that too often unless it's going on behind private doors to where they may disagree, but they don't get as loud as we do. They're not as brash, even in the form of disagreements.
I don't need no one to save me. I was born to be the greatest. All that time in that basement. All that time.
We make the mistake of thinking that people think like we think in America. You know, America is us four and no more. You know, we put give me 50 feet. You know, we put barriers up, we put walls up. What do you want? We always think somebody wants something and they want to use you. But in other countries, people aren't thinking like that about you. So we go to other countries with the assumption that nobody wants to help me. Why? Because nobody's a helper in the United States. Nobody wants to be friendly. Why? Because nobody's friendly in the United States. So we have to bring down those barriers when it comes to people willing to help you in these other countries. They really are. They really are. And it will amaze you how many doors open up when you are just willing to just like Jay just said, just take the time out and attempt. And all of a sudden, all the doors open up. There are women that want to be attracted to you guys, but some of you guys are so stiff when you come to their countries that they're like, you know what? The women are like, that's all right, because you don't even want to try. You don't want to try to dance. You want to try the food. You don't want to try Spanish. I'll give you a perfect example. If you're a guy that comes to South America, any part of Southeast Asia, and all you are looking for is hip hop clubs. Nothing wrong with hip hop clubs, but if that's the only place you go to, I promise you, you're putting yourself in a position that many of the women or even networks that you will make, you won't be able to make them because you're only putting yourself in an Americanized box. Mm-hmm. So we have to start realizing that we have to broaden our horizons if we're going to be going to these other countries.
Right. Yes, absolutely, man. And before we move on, you mentioned the thing about where in the United States people aren't as openly friendly, especially like in certain areas. I would say like in the South, it's definitely more friendlier. But like me from New York, like if I'm walking down the street in New York and like I smile at somebody, like the woman's gonna either think I'm trying to talk to him or the guy's gonna think something funny is up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And but when I'm outside the United States, if I smile at someone, they smile back, and so it's like it's a greeting. It's basically saying like I'm saying hello to you. So I understand. So you definitely have to compartmentalize between the two when you're in the States and outside of the States.
And also that Americanized, the brashness that we have towards each other it's kind of funny. The smile and the ability to be approachable and approaching people is expected in many countries. The ability to approach and the ability to be approachable is expected in many countries. But many countries are not expecting our brashness as Americans. We're very brash, hard to break through the shell, gotta peel the onion to get to know us type people. Many in the UK are like that. Much of Europe is like that. Canada is like that. But a lot of parts of the world aren't like that. They aren't out to get you. So we have to realize that our brashness, our ability to be loud in public spaces and all those things, it's not necessarily called for in other countries. I noticed this even with me and Andre. If we have a disagreement, me being loud is not a part of the makeup. To whereas in the States, a woman is out talking me, I'm out talking her, and we're going back and forth bantering. Well, here in Colombia, I'm not seeing that too often unless it's going on behind private doors to where people are just raising their voice in the name of raising their voices. They may disagree, they may be angry, but they don't get as loud as we do. They're not as brash, even in the form of disagreements. And so that brashness that we have, that we were raised in the United States, it doesn't work well in many other countries.
If there's a couple that's arguing and the voices start to get elevated, people kind of see that like as it being like way too aggressive. Like, what are their thoughts like when they see that?
Really? I'm gonna tell the truth, bro, because you know how I am. You only see that in the hood,
right?
You don't see that in none of the major malls. You don't see that out here in our area, in the suburbs. You see drunk people in the hood, in the barrios. And don't get me wrong, there's some amazing, nice, sweetest people that you ever want to meet in some of the barrios. But at the same time, in some of the broke areas, just like in our country, let's be real. In the United States, some of the loudest people and some of the most disrespectful people are mainly either extra country folk from Kentucky and Tennessee, or brothers and sisters that's in the hood, or white folks that's raised in the hood. So it's usually demographics that cause a person to be comfortable with being loud, extra, flamboyant, zoomorphic with their linguistics. But for the most part, when you get out of those realms of the hood in any country, you find that most people don't even carry themselves like that. If they have disagreements, they take it home. I have yet to see a couple that were in our area, in zone 4, in zone 5 and 6, just out there and just embarrassing themselves and being loud. It just doesn't happen. And even when people from zone 1 and 3 come to these areas, they don't get loud. Why? Because that's not what you do out here, and you draw negative attention to you. So even if a couple that's from another location is out here, they don't do it like that. But I've seen it plenty of times on video footage, or one time I saw it when we were in another zone, and a father was yelling at the daughter at the top of his lungs, and a guy was yelling at his girlfriend and being extra with it. But you like, in our area, it just doesn't happen. So I hate to say classism exists everywhere, but it actually does.
No, that's very true. That's very true. I mean, because you usually won't see that, because where I'm at, like I'm in the suburbs, right? But if I go in the inner city, you'll like seeing something like that. And I hate to say the word normalized, but it's more commonplace. You know what I mean? And so I know what you mean by, like, as far as the classism and things of that sort. So you definitely make a point, and I think that's like universal. I think that's universal, no matter where you are in the world. I haven't heard this too much, but I still wanted to mention it, especially like with the rules and laws. Sometimes they change. So when you guys are traveling, make sure that you guys are paying attention, especially like for visa status. Like I believe that in October, Brazil is changing up their visa status. So guys, make sure that you guys are looking into that as far as with your travel plans and times and things of that sort. You always want to make sure, because like, I know it'll break your heart if you spend your money, buy a plane ticket, and you can't even get in the country, and you've already taken the time off of work, right? And we all know, like, most companies will only give like at least 14 days max. So let's say if you take 8 to 10 days, you got 8 to 10 days that you can't even get back. So you want to make sure that you're doing your research. Look at the visa process for whatever country that you're trying to travel to. That's extremely important. You just don't want to get stuck out there where you get into the country, you can't even get past immigration, and you have to fly right back to the States.
That's also true. A lot of I've been following that switch that Brazil is going to go back to, in regards to, it's not just your passport that can get you in, but you need a visa to get in Brazil, because they were like that before a few years back. So
Yes,
it's
they
not
were.
like, yeah, a lot of guys don't realize. So it's not like it hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
It'll switch. And so you're right. You're absolutely correct, King. One of the things that can ruin your vacation is not understanding the visa process of that particular country, assuming that all countries are the same, and you get there and you can't get in.
Right. Yes.
After flying 9, 10, or 11 hours, depending on where you're coming from.
Used to rock the gold plated. Now I'm wearing gold chains like I'm famous.